uh, actually, it was my mother. My mother was an orphan, and I had a sister, a year older than me, and my mother wished for her daughter to have everything that she never was capable of doing. And 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 what happened was I got dragged to my sister's ballet class, and it was boring. I had to sit and watch. I was the only guy, and I'd sit and watch, and and they did all of these little girly things, and then they started to jump, and, and I started to giggle, and I started leaning this way, and I got up, and I started to fly around, and I disrupted the class. And at the end of the class, the teacher came over to me and my mother and said, "You either got to get him out of here or put him in tights at the bar." And that began it all. So there I was so pissed. And then I began to see this stuff had a logic to it. It had a certain practicality to it. And it was decipherable. And then I suddenly became good at it. And then my mother, being a very smart lady, heard about this guy called ballet, had the School of American Ballet in New York City. So she took my sister in. My sister auditioned, accepted, and given a scholarship. And as they were leaving, she said, "Oh, I also have a son at home who also does this, but he's not very interested." And I said, "Oh my God, the son, a boy, can he walk? Bring him in." So they brought me in, and suddenly I become this. I'm the only guy there, and suddenly everybody's coming in to see me. I'm 10 years old, and I have a shape, and if George Ballantyne comes in, it's like the door opens, and there he is. First time I saw Ballantyne. Oh my God. So this is the great man, and it just began. And as I'm moving forward with all of this, it suddenly, I suddenly realized one thing: oh my God, I could jump. And nobody else could jump as high as I could. So there became a personage. I became something. I became somebody. And there was something ahead of me in all of this. So I was fascinated by it. And my mother, smart lady that she was, picked the best place. And I was trained by the best people. So it was a very fortunate thing. And my mother was that kind of person, whereas my father was very, very different. Never read a book in his life, was very proud of it. Smart man, little businessman. He ran a little trucking business in the garment center. And it all began. It has grown exponentially exponentially. And whereas when I was first starting, there were just a couple of major areas of major development of dance. Ballet changed all of that, changed the approach to what was called ballet. It changed the idea of how you approached ballet. There were just all kinds of approaches to start work. But the most inventive was through the music itself, where people used to just get big ideas. In the 19th century, they used to start compiling a work and just keep adding to a ballet. So suddenly, a Giselle, a Sleeping Beauty, a Swan Lake, it became, it had all kinds of relatives. And the problem is dance, great classical dance takes classical inventors. And there just aren't many of those guys around. And what happens is everybody now, through contemporary approaches, becomes a genius. And it turns out to be boring. And we haven't been to the theater in a while. And the reason is we are not enticed to go. I used to go all the time, and there were great producers in those days. You always knew the great producers. You always knew the great theater shows. They were always huge hits. The world came to see them. It's not that way anymore. It's all reduced to anybody can do it. And everybody does do it. And there just aren't enough artists, artful people, all kinds of artful people, no matter what areas you are dealing with. You know, a great producer knew everything. There are no hugely great producers anymore.